Hey, welcome. So today we're going to talk about something really interesting, a cognitive bias that is probably and silently shaping decisions in your company. It's called the cheerleader effect, but we're going to give it a special data analytics twist.
So, let me ask you something. I bet you've been in this exact situation. A report hits your desk, right? One is from a single analyst, and the other is from a whole team. Which one just feels more credible? Come on, be honest. That gut feeling? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so what is driving that gut reaction? Well, it's this really powerful psychological quirk, sometimes called the group illusion. We're going to define it because, understanding it, that's the first step to making sure it doesn't trick you. So, the formal name for this is the cheerleader effect. And no, it's not just about who looks better in a group. In the office, in a professional setting, what this really means is that we just automatically think group work is more competent. It's like our brains just kind of average everyone out, which makes the whole group's output seem way stronger than it might actually be.
This is the mental shortcut our brain loves to take. An insight from just one person, man, we put that thing under a microscope. We're instinctively looking for every little weakness. But when that exact same insight comes from a team, our brain just goes, oh, they've probably already checked it. We see what looks like consensus, and we immediately think it must be correct. And let me tell you, that can be a really dangerous assumption to make.
Okay, so how does this actually play out in the real world, in practice? Because this bias, it isn't just some fun psychological factoid. It has some serious real-world consequences, especially when we're dealing with data.
And here we get to the absolute core of the problem. You've got this slick presentation, right? It's delivered by a super confident team, and it creates this powerful illusion of authority. It's so easy to get wowed by that polished final product and completely forget to ask the really tough questions about the messy, complicated data hiding underneath it all. And this is where the risk just becomes crystal clear. Think about it. The exact same data can be presented in two different ways, and you can get wildly different outcomes. So you've got the lone analyst. They might have found this crucial insight, but their work just gets picked apart, bogged down in endless scrutiny. But then, the team presents the same data, and because of that group effect, really serious errors or totally flawed assumptions can just sail right on through, no questions asked.
So, what happens when we just let this bias run wild? Well, the consequences aren't just theoretical. They can have a very real, very tangible, and often negative impact on the business.
And let's be clear, these are not minor hiccups. We're talking about real problems. When we overlook errors, we end up building bad strategy. When we put too much faith in group decisions, we start to trust blindly. We might even completely ignore the one expert in the room who's screaming, hey, there's a fatal flaw here, all because the group feels more credible. And what's the end result? We pour tons of time and money into projects based on a totally false sense of security.
Okay, enough doom and gloom about the problem. Let's talk about solutions. The good news is, once you actually know what you're looking for, you can start to spot this bias happening in your own workplace.
So I want you to stop for a second and genuinely ask yourself this. Think back. Your last few big project meetings. What happened? Was there someone who spoke up with a different individual point of view, and were they actually heard? Or did they just get drowned out by the big, shiny group report? Your answer to that? Well, it can be pretty revealing. Here's a quick little checklist to help you figure this out. First, start tracking the outcomes. Look at the results of your meetings. Are the decisions always siding with the team's recommendation, even when a lone voice brings up a really valid concern? Are you noticing a pattern where sharp, critical feedback from one person just gets ignored? These are huge red flags that the cheerleader effect is in the building.
All right, now for what I think is the most important part. Because, knowing about a bias is one thing, but actually fighting it, that's a whole different ballgame. So let's build a toolkit you can use to defend your decision-making process.
Here it is. This is your action plan. And it's all about building systems that force you to be objective. So, number 1, establish transparent criteria. This just means you create one objective scorecard for all analysis. It doesn't matter if it comes from one person or 10, the standards are the same. Number 2, focus on the data quality, not the fancy presentation. Always be willing to ask, hey, can you actually walk me through the raw data? You've got to look past the pretty charts. Number 3, encourage independent verification. Just have a simple process where a second pair of eyes looks at any critical report. Look, this isn't about distrust, it's about being thorough. And finally, and this one is so important, you have to separate the team dynamics from the data itself. You have to consciously judge the analysis on its own merits, completely separate from how charismatic the team is or how big it is.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it?
Perception does not guarantee correctness. Just because something feels right or looks credible doesn't mean it actually is. In a world that's supposed to be data-driven, we have to constantly remind ourselves to trust the hard analysis, not just the warm, fuzzy feeling we get from a group.
So, I'm going to leave you with one final question to take back to your team. The very next time you're in a meeting and you see everyone nodding in agreement about a data report, just pause for a second and ask yourself, is this a real, hard-won consensus, or is it just the cheerleader effect, hiding a huge flaw that, right now, nobody is brave enough to point out?